This week's Torah portion tells of an event in history that has fascinated people ever since. The 10 plagues that God brought against the Egyptian people. Of the 10 plagues, there has been one that got the most attention, perhaps because of its uniqueness. And that is the second plague, the plague of frogs. It's the only one of the 10 plagues that has its own song.
One morning when Pharaoh awoke in his bed, there were frogs in his bed, and frogs on his head, frogs on his nose, and frogs on his toes. Frogs here, frogs there, frogs were jumping everywhere.
We can sing about it now, but the Egyptians had nothing to sing about. But this plague of frogs leaves us with some very important questions. The first is, did it really happen? And if you search scientific books, or as I did, Google, you will find that the phenomenon of raining frogs has been reported multiple times throughout history on a range of locations around the world. A report published in July of 1873 in Scientific American described a shower of frogs which darkened the air and covered the ground for a long distance following a rainstorm. The account was one of dozens of similar anecdotes collected in a book called The Book of the Damned, though its somewhat skeptical author suggested that the frogs may have simply dropped from the trees. But in May 2010, thousands of frogs emerged from a lake in the northern part of the country and disrupted traffic for days. So it did happen. What happened? You should know that there are biblical commentators who say it wasn't frogs, it was crocodiles, which puts a whole different perspective on it. Even more, our rabbis took note of the fact that in describing the plague of frogs, the Torah tells us about Ta'al Chatzapardea, the literal translation being, and a frog arose and covered the whole land of Egypt. And our sages ask, was it only one frog? Why is it in the singular and not the plural? And the Talmud tells us of two sages who said, yes, it was only one frog. Rabbi Akiva said it was one frog that appeared and it begat countless other frogs that soon filled every part of the land of Egypt. While Rabbi Elazar said it was one frog that appeared and it uttered a harsh croak. And lo and behold, countless hidden frogs suddenly appeared and covered the land. An early 20th century rabbi explained this as follows. At first, Yaakov and his family were given a very warm welcome, and Joseph rose to the highest rank. And what caused it to change? One poisonous frog that appeared in the person of the new king. That was all that was necessary. One person with a dangerous ideology, gave rise to poisonous frogs who accepted his philosophy of hate. You just needed one frog to start croaking. After World War II, you didn't hear much croaking, anti-Semitic venom against the Jewish people. It just wasn't in fashion. All the frogs were in hiding. But in Charlottesville, just a few years ago, we saw a group of neo-Nazis croaking, "The Jews will not replace us." And from there, anti-Semitism has been rising ever since. And when the President of the United States at that time simply said, you had some very fine people on both sides. There were people who saw that as a frog croaking. KKK leader David Duke congratulated Donald Trump for telling the truth. Richard Spencer, the head of the neo-Nazis, said, "I'm proud of Trump for speaking the truth." You just needed one. And then all of those frogs that had been hiding in the sewers for all those years started croaking. And they're still croaking about us. All you need is one Kanye West. But there are millions of followers who hear him and start raising their voices as well. We have to be careful. It only takes one. We have to be careful because there are a lot more than one. And we have to stop fighting amongst ourselves and ask ourselves, who's more anti-Semitic, the right or the left? Ridiculous. We are one. Shabbat Shalom.